I've been getting into the life of Moses because there's so much more to it than blowing through the scripture. I don't know about you guys, but looking back on my life, and that's a long way to look back, I want to tell you right now, I can see what God had to do to bring me to where I am now. And I can see that now in other people's lives, that people wonder, why am I here? You know, I've wondered that a lot. And I don't mean just here in Flowery Branch, but I just say, what? Why am I even alive? You know, the first half or more of my life sure didn't produce anything good, and why I made it through all that craziness is beyond me. You know, it just seems like I didn't recognize it back then, but total miracles were happening just to sustain me and keep me alive, that I just blew off as, well, I got lucky there. You know, I sure got lucky there, you know. But then now that I look back on that stuff, I see that God had his hand on me because he had something for me to do, and he needed me alive to do it. And so even though there were many times in my life where I shouldn't have been alive, God just made it so. And when I think about other people, and I can see them at different stages in their life, and I said, man, what a warrior that person's going to be when they finally give up. Because, man, I remember, you guys think I'm stubborn now. Man, I was just as stubborn working for the enemy as I am now working for God. You know? And so it's interesting to watch people not knowing that God has got something for them. And it's really cool when they realize it, you know. And I want to tell you, man, the life of Moses confirms this, except you probably haven't read it in this way, to where you can apply the life of Moses to your life. And so to this week and next week, I want you guys to think, when I'm talking to you, about how the life of Moses compares to your life. And believe me, man, it does. It just does. You got to step back from the picture and look at the whole thing and say, man, really, that's like me. Now, I'm not trying to say that we're all champions. Now, remember, we call people champions of the faith when God doesn't call them that. You know, nobody's better than anybody else. You know, I was dealing with a guy last week that told me that wherever he goes, 2 or 3 people get saved. You know, and I'm thinking, oh boy. You know, he left out one thing: no one comes to the Father, but that the Father draws them. And so people are stretching out their hands and saying, look at me. Look how great I am. And so when I was thinking about Moses, you see, Moses was born into a very poor family. You know, and a lot of us, you know, didn't grow up with a silver spoon in our mouth. We understand what it's like to have not. And although Moses was just a baby, he really never understood have not, because as you guys know the story, he grew up in royalty, but it was God's plan to keep him from getting killed. And so when I think back then on my life, and I think about all of the craziness, all of the dope, all of the crime, and all of the times that I should have been killed and shot, that I still made it. I mean, you know, and I don't understand why. Except now, I do. And now, you guys may have not have lived through that kind of stuff, but it doesn't matter. not living for God and living for God, you know. So you can have a real nice person that was going to go to that goes to the same hell that I was going to. You know what I mean? So it's not about how bad you were or any of that kind of stuff. It's about who you're serving. So in our study, you guys check out the bulletin. On the front it shows a picture of Moses and his mama putting him in the Nile. Okay, so this is I thought that was kind of a cute picture. But check this out. One of the statements I want you guys to remember is God's plan is engaged way before it's revealed. Like I just shared with you, God had implemented his plan in my life before I was born. And he made sure that I was going to be around to fulfill it. You know, if it's God's will, it's God's bill. He will take care of it. Why he allowed me to choose to do so much stupid stuff, that's our free choice. I sure would never have guessed that when I was growing up that I would be standing here before you guys. And some of you guys know what I'm talking about. You know, it hadn't always been a holy life, you know. But God knew before you were born that you'd be here today. And so obviously all the things that could have been a disaster for you, whether it's avoiding a car wreck that you'd have been killed in, you know, things like that. God has taken care of all these things your whole life because he needed you here today. And he's got plans for you that, wow. And believe me, you don't have to end up standing in front of a coliseum full of people, you know, and hundreds and hundreds come down to get saved. All that matters is that you fulfill the plan that God has for you. Your life, your whole life may be about just reaching one person that God is bringing together for you in your life. And God needs you at that point. If you complete that, then you've done just as good as Billy Graham did, because both completed the will of God. There's none greater than anyone else. And so our mission in life then isn't to go out and bring in the multitudes. Our mission is to go out and do what God says. And then he will say, if his mission for you was to reach one and you did, you were obedient, then he'll say, well done, good and faithful servant. Just like when Billy Graham, who hundreds of thousands have come, it's the same thing. Well done. Well done. That is so awesome to me. That all that stuff in my past that led me to where I am now, and God still doesn't hold that against me, is stunning. It allows me to go and speak to people that you wouldn't even want to be around. You know, that there would be fear in your heart from even walking next to it. But guys, God's in charge of this thing. I don't fear men. I don't have any reason to. God's directing